Hey everybody, welcome to the 2024 Creative Conference hosted and put on by the Atlanta Film Festival, Atlanta Film Society. We have a really awesome group here today that I have been so excited about. And this particular panel and conversation is with some of my favorite people in festivals in the Southern Circuit. The Southeast specifically, and why what they do is so important, and also kind of to get you a better idea of what they do and what their personalities are and what might be a good fit for you as a filmmaker. So to start us off with, I think it would be great. I will go through each one of you and call out your name. And if you wouldn't mind saying your name and what you do with the festival, your festival and where it's located. How old is your organization? And then your personal favorite Southern side dish, which will come into play again later. So we are going to start off with Chris Escobar from the Atlanta Film Society.
Yeah, I'm Chris Escobar. I'm the executive director of the Atlanta Film Society. We're a 48-year-old nonprofit that produces the Atlanta Film Festival. And what was the last one? My favorite Southern dish is chicken and waffles. Thank you for letting me go first before anyone else takes that.
Also, y'all can double up if you have to. Next, Dan Brawley with Cucalorus.
Hello, I'm Dan Brawley. I am the executive director of the Cucalorus Film Foundation and the chief instigating officer of the Cucalorus Film Festival. I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina, the land of the Lumbee tribe and the Waccamaw Siouans. And our festival will be celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. The first festival was held in 1994, the same year that O.J. Simpson ran from the cops on live television. And my favorite dish is a fried collard sandwich, which is a traditional Lumbee recipe that's 2 pieces of fried cornbread with fried collard greens in the middle with a little bit of chow chow on top. Wow. So if you want one, come to the Lumbee Homecoming in July.
How have I never had that? Next up, we have Kimel with the Indie Memphis Film Festival.
Hello, my name is Kimel Fryer. I'm the executive director of Indie Memphis, and I'm in Indie Memphis. We are located in Memphis, Tennessee. We actually are having our 27th film festival this year, and it said the directions you gave said side dish, but I can give both.
Yeah, that is an important clarification.
I follow instructions. I'm just playing.
You could do either one. Side dish is more, I guess. Which one is better for you?
I can answer both.
Okay.
My favorite main Southern dish is fried catfish. My favorite Southern side dish is fried okra. So
same.
Can't go wrong with either one.
Nope. Next we have Jessica from the Sidewalk Film Festival.
Hi, yes, I'm Jessica Chriesman. I'm the Director of Education and Outreach for the Sidewalk Film Festival, which is in the theater district of downtown Birmingham, Alabama, every August. And this August is going to be our 26th festival. And I'm going to cheat and I'm going to say a dessert, which is banana pudding as my favorite Southern dish.
Very good choice. Next up, Clint from the New Orleans Film Society.
Hey, Clint Bowie, he, him. I'm the artistic director of the New Orleans Film Society, based here in New Orleans, Louisiana, home of the Chitimacha and Homa tribes. New Orleans Film Festival is 35 years old this year. And my favorite side dish would be black-eyed peas.
A little bit of healthy food there. How about Patricia from a Pecan Pickling Short Film Festival in North Carolina?
Yeah, hi, Patricia Ferguson, founder, president of Equity Films, which of course the Pecan Pickling Short Film Festival is a part of the work that we do. In terms of how old we are, we just turned 1 year old last week. So yay, we made it. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a miracle.
Good. I mean, the first year is
Absolutely.
the hardest.
Yeah, we're so excited about the 1 year old celebration of that. And my side dish, I'm one of the very interesting people. I don't have a special dish or a special side dish, but if I had to jump in and give one, I would say pecan pie.
Following you there.
Oh yeah.
Now we have Molly with FIG, Film Impact Georgia.
Hey, so I'm Molly Coffey. I'm the co-founder of Film Impact Georgia. I served as the creative director until recently. My position was taken over by Charles Judson, which is appreciated. FIG is located in Atlanta, but we support independent filmmakers all across the state of Georgia. Film Impact Georgia has been organizing resources and opportunities for filmmakers since February 2019. So we just had our 5-year anniversary. And then my favorite Southern side dish is corn casserole, but I really add corn to anything that I can get away with, including like mashed potatoes and macaroni and cheese. So
What? You're a rule breaker.
Oh yeah.
Christopher Everett, tell us about you.
My name is Christopher Everett. I'm the artistic director at the Southern Documentary Fund. We're not technically a festival. We do an annual conference, a documentary conference every year, but as an organization, we've been around for about 20 years. We support makers, documentary creatives throughout the South. We also do, film screenings and events like that throughout the year as well. And like I said, we have our annual artist convening, which is coming up June 7th through the 9th, where it's like a 3-day event of panels, workshops, networking, opportunities, film screenings, etc. And my personal favorite Southern dish, Dan took mine, but because Laurinburg, where I'm from, is like right down the street from Lumberton. So Laurinburg, we're kind of known for the collard sandwich as well. But I would say shrimp and grits is like my next favorite.
Very nice, very nice. We're going to jump into a silly icebreaker just to kind of get to know everybody. Can y'all hear this in the background by any chance? Okay, good. That's good news. So I'm going to read the question and then I'm going to call you out individually and you get to answer with a word or phrase. So it's going to be kind of fast. If your festival was a living and breathing being other than human, what would it be? Mythical creatures allowed. First is Chris Escobar.
A phoenix.
Nice. Dan?
A Pegasaurus.
Uh-huh. Kimel?
Oh, I had it. Unicorn.
Unicorn. Yep. Jessica?
Maybe like a puppy Cerberus, 3-headed dog.
Oh, I love that. Isn't that demonic a little bit in some sort of way? No, it's not. I wouldn't have had
It's a puppy. It's cute. It's a baby.
Yeah. Clint?
Alligator, but maybe I took this in the wrong way. I don't know.
No, I think that's pretty good for New Orleans. Patricia?
Lion, of course.
Oh. Molly, your organization?
Tree spirits.
Oh, that's very Cucalorus had a similar theme last year. And then Christopher Everett.
I would say a dragon.
Dragon. All right, second question. What is your film festival's favorite color? Chris Escobar.
I'd like to think green.
What? Okay, yeah, I guess so. Dan?
Teal.
Okay. Kimel?
I'll say purple. We use that a lot.
I like that. Jessica?
Gotta be yellow.
I know, you're going to
Sidewalk.
Yeah. Clint?
I'm gonna go with gold.
Good. I like gold. Patricia?
Green.
Green. We have a lot of green. Molly?
I mean, FIG is going to be green too, obviously.
I mean, yeah, this is kind of wild. Christopher Everett.
Orange.
Orange. I like orange. Sorry to go here, but I do think it's important because I know one of you have a good answer to this. do you have to time your festival around football season where you are to get the maximum audience attendance? Chris Escobar.
Nah.
Whoa,
Mm.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Dan.
No.
Well, y'all kind of are out of the season anyway, both of y'all. So y'all kind of had an easy out for that. Kimel?
Indie Memphis festivals in the fall, but we're a basketball city, so nope.
That's amazing. Jessica, you're the one that
Absolutely, yes.
yes. I've heard Chloe say that, and I've heard y'all scheme actually changing dates because
Yeah.
football season is such a problem.
Yeah, way before my time, it was in September, and now we're in August to avoid.
Yeah, and it was just too much. Clint?
Yes. And not only do we schedule around football games, but we also this year, and this is so embarrassing but true, but we're scheduling around the Taylor Swift concerts in New Orleans in October. We just can't compete. We really
can't.
For flights, hotels, everything is just impossible.
That's honestly amazing. Patricia?
Yeah.
No. Molly, probably not relevant for you or Christopher Everett, unless y'all just have a fun answer you wanted to give. And in the same vein, you have summer heat. I can't think of any of y'all right off that are in the middle of summer. Are any of y'all in the middle of summer? So I feel like that's probably a unanimous.
Well,
yes.
I mean, August is hot.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That does count. It is hot.
I will say though, we will probably never have a festival in the summer though, because the summer in Memphis is ridiculous. Like, yeah.
We had a festival in May one year, and half of our staff were at the beach instead of working. So we decided never to do that again.
Yeah, and you have Surfalorus, which falls in the summer, doesn't it? Sometimes, most
At
of the
the
time.
end of the summer, but the fall is actually the season where they're the best waves. So
You have to
Usually
plan
have
around.
our artists, our documentary convening in the summertime. So like I said, this year we're having it in June. So
Okay. It's brave. So what is your caffeinated beverage of choice during your fest? And if you don't drink caffeine, then tell me what you do to lift your spirits. Chris Escobar.
I'm gonna be so basic. Coca-Cola.
Like just straight sugar Coca-Cola. Mexican Coke or like
Ideally Mexico, yeah.
Yeah. It's my favorite too.
Yeah.
Dan Brawley. I know what yours is.
I drink an espresso tonic, which is two things that don't taste good together, which most people don't think taste good even together. So but that's what I
And
like.
you like Sundrop as well, which has caffeine.
Oh yeah, I'm embarrassed to say.
Oh, sorry, y'all. Kimel.
I'm with Chris, Coca-Cola, but like red can, cold out of the fridge, straight Coca-Cola.
Yep, the sugar is helpful. Jessica.
Probably just like an iced latte, caramel if I can get it.
That sounds awesome. And yeah, y'all had that really cool coffee shop across the street for a long time. Clint.
Kombucha. I'm a kombucha drinker.
Kombucha has caffeine. It counts. Patricia.
Really just a lot of water, H2O, but when I do deviate with the Coca-Cola red can, as I said before, just cold and straight out of the refrigerator.
Love it. Molly, you've worked enough festivals to be able to answer this question.
I would just say a dirty chai latte because it's the only way that I can trick my body into handling espresso.
And what about you, Christopher?
I usually go with a golden latte. It has like turmeric. Usually I do it hot, and it has a lot of good turmeric stuff. To kind of fight off the germs and all that stuff when you're around a lot of people. So I try to load up on that almost every day if I convening or if I go to a festival.
Yeah, these are all good suggestions. So I just have a couple of wild card questions. We'll just breeze through those real quick. What position during film festival production, so while your film festival is actually happening, would be the first to die in a horror movie? Chris Escobar. This isn't an insult. I mean, they just want to be front lines, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Probably me from a heart attack.
Oh, I wouldn't want you to die. Dan?
I'd say also myself, probably because no one saved me from the box that I was hiding in on stage for 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Call back to 2022.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of different times where I'm
Oh, you've
in
done it more than once.
in a
Okay.
cardboard box on stage, and it's just sitting there when people come in, they don't know what's in it. And then I pop out to introduce the movie. And it's not a really comfortable thing to do. And the last time I did it, I forgot to cut holes in it. And so I was also wearing a leopard print onesie. And so I was very, very hot. I did have my phone so I could doom scroll, while I waited.
That's hilarious. Kimel.
Honestly, probably me because I'm always in the crowd.
Yeah.
So I would probably be like the one in the midst of the chaos and the last one to like actually realize that there's danger afoot. So,
Yep. Jessica.
I'm gonna deviate, not because I think would actually survive, but I'm gonna say box office because there's probably like already a line of people there. They're like close to the action at all times.
I love it. Also, Jeff Nixon. He might be a contender. He does special events. Patricia.
I'm going with the majority. It'll definitely probably be me.
I don't know why I'm laughing every time somebody says that, but it's just very dramatic. Molly.
I'm gonna say whoever's doing filmmaker services because I feel like some filmmakers would get out of danger and some filmmakers would contact filmmaker services to arrange them getting out of danger. Filmmakers can be the best and can also be the absolute worst.
Yes. That's true. And Christopher Everett.
Oh no, I probably would say I was going to say me, but probably our new ED. He might be the first because he's new. You know what I'm saying, and it doesn't know the area like that, and I can kind of see him, being it
stumbling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me pick one of these last two questions that I think would be fun. I think I'm gonna do this one. What is your favorite screening venue for your festival, and is it haunted? Chris Escobar.
I'm biased because I've now come to own that venue. But yeah, the Plaza Theater, and it is very haunted by many spirits.
I love it. I lost my page. Dan.
Our main venue is a 1850s historic theater, and it has the last operational thunder roll in the United States, which is basically a cannonball on this wooden track, and you can release the ball and it sounds like thunder. And it's definitely haunted. If you ever come to Thalian Hall, say a little prayer to Thalia as you enter, and then hopefully you will be haunted by the good ghosts of Thalian Hall.
What? I didn't know that. Kimel, I know you got one.
Well, I would say my favorite, probably Crosstown. It's a relatively new build, so it's not haunted. It does seat over 400 seats. And yeah, Crosstown, well, maybe the building itself, the structure of it had been there for decades, and it had been abandoned, and then after 2010, they completely revamped it. So now it's a multi-use, multi-art space that a lot of people use. Artists are able to stay there in residencies. But I've not heard of any hauntings, and I feel like I would if it was. So I think all the ghosts are gone.
You'd know for sure. Jessica.
Probably the Alabama Theater, which opened in 1927 as I believe a Paramount picture house. And it is 100% definitely haunted.
Yep. So is the lyric. Patricia.
Well, I would say it's not haunted. It is at the Berkeley High School auditorium, which is this beautiful, picturesque facility, and it's only a handful of years old, maybe about 10. And there's absolutely no hunting going on. And it is the only theater in the entire county because we don't have movie theaters and things like that. So yeah, no
Yeah.
hunting.
Y'all have a cute town.
Yeah.
Molly Coffee.
I just
Well,
want,
in Atlanta, what would you say?
yeah. Well, I just back up the Chris with the plaza because I've had some of the most special movie going moments of my life in that theater, and it is 100% haunted for sure.
Christopher Everett, do you have any votes for Wilmington that you want to throw in the hat?
Well, I guess Wilmington, Thalia, but in Durham with Southern Dock Fund, we don't really have a permanent spot. We kind of move all over the city. You got the Carolina Theater. I think that place, it may be haunted. It's been around, I think, 90 plus years. So something's probably happened there.
Something's probably happening.
But also we have a spot called the Fruit Warehouse. Hell, that may be haunted too. It's like an old abandoned warehouse that turned into like this cool, funky art space. So I'm pretty sure that some of these places have some crazy history to it.
I skipped over Clint because I realized we have not heard from New Orleans yet.
I like to watch movies at the Broad Theater, which is one of our venues, and I don't think it's haunted, and I feel like that works in its favor. I live across the street from a graveyard, so it's nice to take a break from the spirits every now and then.
Yeah, especially there.
I'm definitely going to haunt Thalian Hall one day, so.
Are you? Is that
Yeah.
going to be one of your venues of choice?
Be ready when my time comes. You can visit me there on the second balcony, the very top.
Let us know a chair number
Yeah.
when you find one. So let's jump into the meat here. So this is open forum and talk as much as you want, but let's try to keep it like a minute or two. What excites each of you most about your film festival program or program in regards to supporting regional and state talent? I want to call on Patricia first.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything excites me when it comes to this because we live, for those of you unfamiliar with Northeastern North Carolina, there is no arts presence in Northeastern North Carolina. And so film has become this incredible tool by which storytelling is told beyond the Arts Council. And it's done within a context that allows the filmmakers and the seasoned and those who are emerging to really begin to dream about the potential that in terms of economics and creating an ecosystem for filmmaking is actually a possibility and can actually happen. So everything excites me about it, the potential of storytelling, the potential of creating an ecosystem for the economy. And most importantly, we want to become a community where destination is a place. It is a place for a destination and not just a place where you hear of in the news, because we are extremely rural. We only have about 24 houses to every square mile. We don't have access to a lot of resources. So filmmaking becomes this conduit through which we can begin to tell some of those stories, and the people can really have a bridge toward hope and using art as that bridge to do that as an artist.
Yeah, we have a lot of North Carolina people here. I met you through Dan.
Yeah.
And I know I've heard Dan talk about your area in particular, and that's where your mother's from, Dan, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kimel, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I think what excites me the most about Indie Memphis is that a lot of people, unless you've been to Tennessee, you don't think about how long the state is. And I've always said that Tennessee really could be 3 states in one because West Tennessee versus Central Tennessee versus East Tennessee, we really have different cultures. So when it comes to the West Tennessee side, we are the biggest presence, and we also have, in addition to our competitive block where we do show narratives, we show experimental, both in feature and short form films. We also support our hometowners. We have a hometowner competition block, specifically to make sure that hometowners also have a platform that, as we expanded, we wanted to invite more voices. We wanted to invite more perspectives to Memphis, but not dilute the filmmakers that are here. So I'm really excited about, and I always get excited about the fact that we found a good duality, like to be in that space.
I think Molly, you're next.
Yeah, so it's been a long time in the making because of pandemics and industry strikes and all those kind of things, but we finally launched our feature film development lab this year. So in April, we have 4 Georgia-based feature film screenwriters that are going to be put in a cabin for a weekend with industry mentors from New York and LA to work on their projects. So we're very proud of that. And, you know, one of the things that we've obviously done since our original conception of Film Impact Georgia has been to give short film grants to filmmakers, because it was important to create a way for filmmakers to fund their films, because that's important, an important part of their journey to figuring out what their voices are, and is one of the hardest things to get off the ground. So the feature film development lab was just the next evolution to help support the local talent, while also making sure that Film Impact Georgia, you know, is finding our own way as an organization and not respecting the things that other people are doing in town, and not stepping on their toes.
Awesome. Christopher, Everett.
Yeah, you know, what excites me about, you know, Southern Documentary Fund is just how we're, you know, we just have the opportunity to help out makers in the South. You know, Cynthia Hill, one of the co-founders of SDF, you know, one of the reasons, you know, she wanted to start this thing was to keep the talent here in the South, you know, not, you know, leave and go to New York, LA, Chicago, but stay here in the South. The stories are here. We can build the infrastructure here if we stay and just grow it. And then also being able to offer filmmakers mentorship, fiscal sponsorship to help them raise funds for their projects. Also an annual grant that we do as well. And also the convening, you know, a thing we can do every year where we get all these folks from around the South and other parts of the country to convene over a weekend of networking and building, to just kind of grow this whole documentary ecosystem that's in the South. And, you know, I've been on both sides of it as a filmmaker, getting support from SDF, and now I'm being a part of that, of helping other filmmakers as well. So I'm very excited about what we do and what we're trying to do towards the future as well.
Chris Escobar.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, that's evolved a lot over the last nearly 50 years. I mean, at first it was the only place for local filmmakers to have their work shown and to also start to have access to some filmmaking equipment back when everything was all 16 millimeter. And that's evolved a lot over the years. And now, you know, if anything, it's an opportunity where, with all of these opportunities and noise and so much media being made, it's kind of a place for everyone to come together in one place, and for there be a little bit of focused attention. And what is still true now as it was back then is that at the core of why our festival exists is so that our local community can have their work shown alongside the kind of latest and greatest from around the country and around the world. And so being able to bring people together in that, and that still means something, and that our local filmmakers, you know, feel the same kind of esteem and excitement as we have in showing their work, and being able to kind of, you know, do something for it is really rewarding. And just being able to, you know, what I love even more is seeing the collaborations that come out of people who then meet each other at the festival, and that kind of, I mean, that's sort of the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh my gosh, yes. Jessica.
I think everyone has really expressed this very well already, but I also wanted to add that I think that I don't want to try to speak for everyone, but I think what I'm hearing everyone say is like, we want to nurture the people in our communities who have these talents. And I think try to keep them here and giving their talents to our respective communities. And I also think there's an element of like wanting to stop like the brain drain and keep these talented people here and having them inspire the people who are around them in their cities and states as well.
Amazing. Anybody else want to speak to that?
It's a, you know, it's interesting the way people watch movies has changed so quickly. I mean, everybody has a micro cinema in their home. And so the way that we programmed Cucalorus 15 years ago is very different from today. And, you know, a lot of our festivals here are 25 to 50, almost 50 years old, right? I think it would be difficult to start a festival like Atlanta Film Festival or New Orleans or Cucalorus today that blended international, you know, and local, you know, just, and what I think is interesting in the film festival industry right now is what Patricia is doing. I'm really excited about how the Lumbee Film Festival is evolving. And so looking at the places where there aren't any opportunities right now. And then, you know, what excites me about it is that the way people watch movies, you know, the fact that that's changing actually gives an advantage to all of us, because it's not just about watching a movie. When you come to a film festival, it's about community, it's about meeting people. And, you know, at Cucalorus, one of the things that always excites me is the performers who introduce films. So we have poets, musicians. Last year, we had an electric cellist who did looping, live looping, and it was totally mesmerizing. And so that just sort of like personally for me is a thing that I look forward to every year, because unlike the films, which we program, curate, judge, sift through, the performers all craft original works that are 4 minutes or less. And that's what happens at the beginning of each screening at Cucalorus. And so I don't ever know exactly what's going to happen in those 4 minutes. Every once in a while I have to leave the room because I'm like, I can't believe they're doing that. Well, but most of the time it's a pretty special moment. And so, yeah, to me, it's like, there are still filmmakers who need a platform, and the people who need that platform is changing because it's so easy to share your film. And that's where I think film festivals have to continue to be really thoughtful about who they're supporting. And I think it's just very different today than it was 15 years ago, 25 years ago, certainly 30 years ago when Cucalorus started. It was just absolutely remarkable that we were showing people's films to other humans in a public place. And that's just not quite the dynamic today. And so and the flip side of that, so many more people have access to making movies that there's just, I don't know how, if anybody could even calculate how many more movies are being made every year. And so there's still, I think film festivals are absolutely vital to our culture now. And that's also different, right? When in the late 90s, we were the, you know, weird kid down the street, completely alternative. And today we're a staple in our community in the Southeast. I think that's true for a lot of us. And so it's a really exciting time for film festivals as the world around us changes, that we continue to support filmmakers who maybe aren't getting access to audiences and who need to meet each other to create that network of support. So,
Chris Escobar.
Yeah, I just wanted to tack on that, you know, I know your question is about what excites you about it. I think one of the things that is difficult about it, and just in the time I've been around, you know, 13 years ago, essentially all we had to do was narrow it down from just a quality standpoint to kind of the best 10%. And that kind of worked out where the number of submissions we were getting, it was like 1,500. You know, the best 10%, that's what's getting the festival. If you're a local film and it's a decent film, you're in. Now we've been getting upwards of 10,000 submissions. So narrowing it down to the top 10% is still, you know, 8-9 times more than what we can play. Thankfully, it's still top 10% is also still really great and worth playing. But now it means, you know, for every, you know, we have one slot for 3 or 4 slots or up to 10 slots. That's a film worth playing. So that becomes really difficult. Sort of a hard way to keep friends, frankly, because it means there's a lot of people who have great films that are worth playing, but for any number of other reasons you can't. And so that does become challenging because that's changed, you know, 10-year period. That's not that long for that to change so drastically. And so for people to be able to understand that, it does become difficult. And, you know, a lot of us on the team are filmmakers. And so we also understand the blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice that goes into making these things and what it feels like to be rejected. So that doesn't get any easier.
And the other side of that is that there's a film festival just about every week, even in a little city like Wilmington. You know, we're hosting a documentary film festival this summer. I just met with somebody running a horror film festival that'll be at our little cinema in October. The Wilmington Jewish Film Festival is coming up soon. The North Carolina Black Film Festival, which is in Wilmington. And so every city, I'm sure Atlanta's probably has even more. At least there's another place for people to go, and it's not like dream killers, you know, all day long.
And I think that's a really great segue into, I'm going to jump to a lower question on the list. What do y'all recommend, or what advice do you have for filmmakers who want to get into their local film festival? And also ones who have done that and maybe have been in it for a few years, who want to branch out and get into others, like somebody else here in this room. Does advice come to mind for you guys about how to grow as a filmmaker? Those are two different questions. Chris Escobar.
Yeah, first you should try going. The number of people who don't go to a film festival and are don't go to any film festival and are submitting their work, it's just like, it's, you wouldn't apply to a college that maybe you don't know anything about or have visited at least, or something like that. Like, it's the same thing. So I think people need to be going to film festivals first, and then especially if you want to have a sense of if your work can fit in there, like you need to have a specific sense of that specific festival.
Awesome. Anybody else want to add to that? Kimel?
Just to expound upon like what Chris was saying, like I 100% agree with him. And I also would like to add that each festival, we have our different culture, right? And so I think there might be certain things that matter to certain individuals. It's really hard to figure that out, I think, sometimes online. I think we are as transparent as we can be. But I also think when you are in person, when you're in the environment, when you're meeting who the programmers are, when you're meeting the other filmmakers who are there. Like, one thing that I really love about film festivals in general, and I think this is with each of us, we all create community in our own way. And so I think it's really imperative, if you want to get into a festival, you got to go to that community, not just to see if your film makes sense to fit there, but is this the community you want to be a part of? And, be honest with yourself. And if it is, then, continue to submit. And I would also say, for the filmmakers that maybe have gotten into it and they want to look at more, and they want to look at other festivals, I always encourage people to think about your distribution, your festival strategy, even before you shoot a frame. Because for instance, I've helped with, and I've made my own horror film. So when I wanted to put my film into festivals, I was less concerned with certain festivals in certain cities. I was more concerned with the genre, because it's that community that I was talking about. So you might want to figure out, okay, you might want to say, well, I've done the basic festival route. What do I want to get into this? And if you want to get into, bigger name festivals, again, I think you should go and you should figure out that community there. And also you learn so much there as well. I know at our festival, I know at New Orleans, because I visited Atlanta, we all provide panels, we all provide workshops. Usually we provide those completely free to the public. So in addition to you finding community, you also could find knowledge, you can find resources, and you could also collaborate with other people who are, working and maybe have developed a formula that allows them to get, their films into certain festivals and stuff like that.
I also add to that, if it's okay. I can remember last year that, we held our very first festival last year, and I literally made it a point to visit some places like Cucalorus and Tryon and all those places, like you just said, to really better understand what is it am I getting involved in, and how do I invite the storytellers into the conversation so that they are an early part of what it does. So I'm still on this mission of learning, and I'm sure that's why I'm here today, listening very carefully. And what I discovered by hosting the film festival was I wanted to figure out if there were any filmmakers in my community because of its demographics, and discovered some very amazing filmmakers, and they were thirsty for what you were just talking about in terms of, am I, would anyone be interested in what I'm writing? Is my story being told right? And one of the things I encouraged was, well, how many film festivals have you actually attended? And guess what? None of them had ever attended a single film festival in their entire life. And it was there that we began to build on, maybe the next pieces of this incredible puzzle on how do you better tell your story and then how to get your stories out there. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Yeah. We have Jessica next.
I have a whole PowerPoint on this that I'm trying to go through in my head as everyone else is talking. But I would say there are a few things that I try to tell, especially emerging, so short filmmakers. One is to watch the time of the duration of your movie. In some ways, your 15-minute movie needs to be 3 times as good as the 5-minute movie it's displacing. So really be sure you're using every second of your runtime and it's worthwhile. I say look at the actual submission fees. Especially when I was a student, I tried to make sure I was submitting to festivals that had a specific student section. So that way in my head, they were more likely to take a student work versus someone who's taking, mostly work that are trying to specifically be in an Oscar qualifying film festival or whatever, because I knew my work wasn't that at that point. Oh gosh, I feel like there was one more that I felt like was super important, but maybe it will come back to me. But those first two, I think, are top tier tips.
That's great. Molly?
Just speaking as a filmmaker, the life of your film obviously doesn't end when you shoot it. So when we're actuating all of these resources that we need to make our film, something that people should consider is including a film festival strategist, put $100 to $200 away to very specifically meet with someone who has more knowledge than you to help come up with an idea of the best way to not just, because it isn't just about not going broke, because you can go broke applying to all these film festivals, but also figuring out timing. And that not just, and I don't just mean premiere, figure out what do you want to do with your film even after it goes on the film festival circuit. Can that affect the timing and the duration of your film festival run? Figure out things that you're applying to and when other things are going to come back around for the next cycle. There's so much that goes into the timing, and also just figuring out, maybe spreading out your submissions to increase the chances of being able to attend as many film festivals as possible. Because I can definitely speak as a filmmaker, how hard making films are, and it becomes very soul sucking because you're putting yourself out there so much, and there are a lot of failures and rejections while there are also a lot of successes. And it's just those little moments, especially the moments that I've had at regional film festivals, that are the energy and the heart that carry you along to be able to keep doing this and going through making a film. I mean, I was at New Orleans Film Festival this past year, and me and my producer were walking down the road, and we got catcalled from a car driving down the road about how much they loved our film. And I think about that constantly, like just little things like that. You wouldn't have those experiences not attending a film festival.
Wow. We're bringing it over to Clint on that note.
Yeah, I think there's this tendency for filmmakers who to take a rejection as some kind of sign that the festival or the program that they're applying for just isn't interested or doesn't like their style or doesn't like their filmmaking. And that's just not the reality of how, programming works at all. It's not a black and white or a yes, no. Unfortunately, that's how it comes off. But I would just encourage folks to not give up. And I don't think there's a filmmaker out there working today who's not been rejected by multiple festivals and multiple filmmaker development programs. It's part of this industry that we're in, and it's part of that learning process and growing process. And I would just encourage filmmakers, especially at that early stage, to not give up and, you know, find the screening opportunities and the communities that feel right for them and that are inviting them in, and kind of go from there.
And Chris Escobar.
Yeah, well, and actually, I was gonna say something else, but what Clint was saying made me think about how I think directors, producers, I think can sometimes take a page out of the book of actors who are much more attuned to not only dealing with and facing rejection, but learning from it and realizing that it's a process, and that over the course of auditioning, it's not just about do you get that part or not, but it's also making an impression on that person for the long term and the long game. I would say another piece of advice for those who have the time to do it, and this is not just about getting film festivals, but can just as easily apply to, say, getting grants or things like that, is if you have an opportunity to be on the other side of the equation and volunteer as a grant reviewer, grant reader, as a screener for film festivals, so many of us, welcome those opportunities. Do that, because there's nothing more enlightening to not only quickly what starts to sort out the good and the bad, but also even within the good, how that festival thinks about, okay, but how is this interesting? How does this push the envelope? What does this do differently? And so if you have an opportunity to be on the other side of the equation, like, jump at that, because that is such a huge education.
That's great advice. Jessica, do you remember?
Yes, but I also want to 100% co-sign what Chris just said and what Clint said.
Yeah.
But I did remember the other thing, is to really think about your film and the themes of your film and your genre, and then look specifically to festivals that cater to those. If it's a horror movie, there's tons of horror festivals. If it's a comedy, there's specifically comedy festivals. Sidewalk, we take everything, but we specifically have a Blacklands track, a Shout LGBTQ track, and a Life and Liberty track. So if your identity as a filmmaker or your film itself falls into those tracks, you might have a little bit of a leg up on other films that are more general. And it's really easy in Film Freeway to keyword search. My film is a documentary about Greek-owned restaurants in Birmingham. So I keyworded immigrants for my film festival. I keyworded food, I keyworded Greek, I keyworded documentary, all those things. Any little puzzle piece of your film is really something that there's probably a festival that caters to that, and you should definitely look for that as you're figuring out your run.
Excellent. Kimel?
Clint said something that was brilliant, and so that's why I rose my hand again. When you're dealing with, with filmmakers dealing with rejection, we all have dealt with rejection. I'm sure everyone on this call has dealt with rejection in some form. And so it's definitely not a black and white. And also, you just never know what might happen if you turn that around. There's actually an example. One of our short film winners this past year, they applied for our indie grants competition a while back. They didn't get in the first time. They applied, I think, the second time, and they did get in. And so they were awarded a grant to help make this film. And then the film was so strong, they won an award at our festival. And when I talked to the filmmaker actually took some advice that he had gotten, and it actually teamed up with other people in the festival. So there were actually a lot of people a part of the festival that helped him make his film that did actually win this award. So I just say it to say, I just wanted to hone in on the fact of what Clint said. It's never black and white. It's very rarely even an easy or very clear decision. And so any filmmaker that's dealing with rejection from a festival, whether it's a festival you just saw randomly on Film Freeway, or whether it's one of your favorites that you have supported for years, just receiving a rejection is not an indication of your talent, of that film, of any type of indication on whether or not you are or not good enough. Sometimes it really does come in with maybe what the program is already looking like. Is this the best fit right now? And you never know what might happen with that same idea with some time on it, or maybe some adjustments. You just never know. So I just wanted to say that.
Very good. Dan?
We get so many submissions that it's probably for every film that is quote unquote good enough, um, we may pick 1 out of 8 of those. And so it's kind of like bananas at the grocery store. When I go to the grocery store, I don't take all the good bananas. They're not gone when I leave.
Mm.
And I think a couple other things to keep in mind, especially at festivals like ours, most of our festivals, the person who's watching your film is likely also curating 4 or 5 other things throughout the year. I'm often on grant panels, so I can remember watching a film that was submitted to Cucalorus, and then a year later I'm on a grant panel and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that film. That film was amazing. Such a bummer that it didn't get into Cucalorus. And so I was rooting for it to get the grant. I gave it high scores. I don't think that filmmaker's ever going to know that. But I think what's important to remember is that submitting to film festivals is not a linear process. If you're just submitting because the only thing you want is to be in the spotlight with a microphone, then you're not quite understanding how this whole ecosystem works. That you really, and what you're paying for, I think it's another thing that's very misunderstood. If you're paying a reasonable entry fee, you're not even coming close to covering our cost of just keeping track of all that. At Cucalorus, we pay all of our judges. We just feel like it's impossible to expect filmmakers to get their advice without being compensated in some way. I mean, it's not a lot of money. They're not, moving into mansions because of their being judges at Cucalorus, but all the people that judge at Cucalorus are filmmakers. And so I think you just have to take a really broad view of that process. And I think the other thing, especially for feature filmmakers to keep in mind, is that we're looking to have a really positive relationship with the filmmakers. It's a collaboration. It's a really deep collaboration. It can be emotional. We all know what it feels like when you're like 10 minutes before a screening and you're there with the filmmaker, and there's an emotional component to it. So I say all that to say, be nice to the film festival programmers. Be aware of what's happening on their side of the bargain. We would be glad to accept gift bags, goodie packages. I say that all the time, and sometimes the filmmaker will send us brownies or, a gift card to Trader Joe's or something. There's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with reaching out to the programmers at film festivals. You have to do everything you can to stand out in the big sea of bananas. And so, going to New Orleans Film Festival and just saying hello to Clint, saying, hey man, I think you guys do amazing work. That's a really cool shirt you're wearing. Also I'm going to submit my film, but really make it personal, because that's, we love filmmakers, all of us. That's why I do my job. I love watching movies. Man, if I could screen every film that I fell in love with, Cucalorus Film Festival would last for 365 days a year, and it would be 24 hours per day. It would never stop. And so, just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. And I love talking to filmmakers. So email me. I would suggest that the shorter your email, the more likely that you're going to develop a good relationship. Don't send me the one about the fact that your mom did craft service and all these, like, man, how many of those do I get? So be really succinct about why you want to reach out to me. Tell me something that's really unique about you. Everybody spent all the money they have on their film. That's not unusual. So, tell me the things that make your film and you as a filmmaker unusual and special. And that can go a long way. Yeah.
That's great advice. Thank you. Christopher Everett.
Yeah, pretty much, agreeing with it, what everyone's saying. I think all these tips are great. I know me as a filmmaker as well, I always try to give a lot of our documentary filmmakers advice through the Southern Documentary Fund, or how I've done it is I always ask for waivers. Worst they're gonna say is no. So 9 times out of 10, a lot of times I'll just ask for a waiver. And then you also have certain festivals, they are doing, more diversity initiatives. I know, Cucalorus does a great job at that. Like if you're a BIPOC filmmaker, they can, waive the fee, and there's several other festivals out there that's doing that. So if you are a BIPOC maker or a woman maker, there are festivals that will, hook you up with that. But I always ask. And 9 times out of 10, I either get a waiver or I'll get some type of discount, you know? And so you never know if you don't ask. And so a lot of filmmakers don't even realize that. Hey, just ask them if they offer any waivers and you'll be surprised. And also I think just you have to make a decent film as well. You know, you have to make something that's worth watching, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's the thing that a lot of filmmakers have to just deal with. We have to take the criticism sometimes. If a film isn't good, it just isn't good. But you learn from that. And, you know, being a reviewer and being on programming committees and teams, you get to see what good films look like, you know, and you can kind of build on that. I remember when I worked at the Full Frame Documentary Film Festival, it really made me step my game up as a documentarian, because seeing those films and seeing the quality and on the level, I said, man, I really got to improve my filmmaking and go back to the drawing board and kind of, you know, start doing some things differently. And then also, like what Chris was saying about even with grants, one of my mentors told me, say, hey, Chris, if you want to get better at being better at applying for grants, you need to start reviewing grants and being a part of that process. And so that's what I do. So I always volunteer because we have a grant that we give out. I participate in that we do every year. And then also I volunteer for other organizations, whether it's ITBS, NEA as well, because I want to see, you know, how they're putting their grants together and how can I incorporate some of that into what I'm trying to do when I'm applying to some of these things as well. So you have to participate, you know, in the ecosystem. And to me, that's how you get those networks. For example, you know, I connected with Dan years ago with my first documentary. You know, I was able to get into the Work in Progress program, you know, and they really supported me with my first film, Wilmington on Fire, you know, and the rest is history. So, you know, I'm kind of, you know, I always tell filmmakers all the time, you know, I've done it on both sides, you know, as an administrator and also as a filmmaker as well. And you really just have to participate in the ecosystem, and it'll do a lot for you.
I just think that it's amazing. Thank you, Chris. I think it's amazing that, and I wonder if y'all have noticed it too. I feel like there's something really special about all of y'all as a collective group, and even some that aren't here today because we could only have so many people, that I haven't noticed a synergy similar anywhere else. Like it's like this weird pocket of just like magical film festivals that are super helpful in elevating and exposing people in our areas that, you know, may otherwise not know anything about indie filmmaking. Like, for example, I didn't know about indie filmmaking until I was about 24 years old. I didn't even know that was an option. And through all this work that y'all are doing, the reach is just getting broader and broader, but I just feel like it's so unique. Do any of y'all have thoughts as to why? I mean, maybe it's just because I'm from the areas that y'all are from that I feel like I'm just seeing it more. But when I go to other festivals in other parts of the country, no offense to anybody else, I mean, there's great ones everywhere, but there seems to be like this very unique element as to what you all are doing, and it's like intertwined. Does anybody else feel that?
I would say, you know, one of the things that's distinct about this Southern US is that we have a lot less money. You know, if you look at studies, you'll see that it's pennies to the dollar, the national funding that goes to the arts. It's pennies to the dollar. And so what does that create? That creates resiliency. You know, it creates a very different sense of identity, that when we're the underdog or we're, you know, oppressed, it creates a very distinct identity. And so a really good example of that is the Indie Media Arts South group. You know, the Sundance and NEA launched this initiative, and groups were formed all over the country. And the one that has become the most valuable and the most robust is the one here in the South. And so I don't know that I know a lot, can say a lot more deeper than that, except to say that we're all really proud to be from the South. That's an important part of my identity. And so I'm going to fight for that. And so when I see somebody else who's also, you know, in that struggle, I'm going to be right. I got their back, you know. And so my favorite festivals to attend, you know, going to Sidewalk, going to New Orleans. I mean, these are places that I love. I feel at home. And I'm sure that there's a similar sentiment in other regions, but I think there's something about the fact that we've had to be resilient in a way that's very unique to the South that creates an identity that's really strong.
Amen to that. Clint?
Yeah, I mean, echoing a lot of what Dan's saying, we, in thinking about like where we want to show up, it's really evolved over the years. I think for a long time we felt like we had to have a presence at Sundance and South by Southwest, and we've completely shifted our focus to really showing up in our region and making sure that we're attending festivals in the Southeast and being part of the communities that are created by these other festivals. I also think there's such incredible support within all of us. I certainly feel it. I mean, we've called on so many of you and representatives from the organizations here to evaluate different proposals and grant applications. And Atlanta Film Festival was so generous last year to welcome our Southern Producers Lab and Emerging Voices Fellows. We're trying to send them out to other festivals in our region, but there's so much good work here. It feels like counterintuitive to bypass the important like stops within our region and just go to some of the, I don't know, bigger or more prestigious festivals out there. But that's kind of where we've come to as an organization, to just continue to invest in our region and the resources that currently exist, and just try to be stronger together.
Anybody else want to? Oh yeah, Kimel.
And I also like, I 100% echo everything that Dan and Clint said. And I also think when you think about indie filmmaking, like that's the spirit of indie filmmaking, right? Like usually not having the resources, not having the connections, not having like the traditional path, but finding a way to get your story out and finding audiences to watch it. Like that is the spirit of it. And I think when it comes to the South, we have a different perspective. We've got beautiful stories, some that are now because we have been around for a little bit now. So now we are getting so many of those stories out, and we're thinking about ways to support each other. Like for instance, I know with Clint, we with New Orleans, we never try, our festivals are kind of close together, but we always are in connection to make sure that we don't overlap, because we support each other. You know, it's not so much competition as it is like we see them as a sister organization. So we want to make sure that as we are in the South and we're in this Southern network of festivals, we want to help each other build up. You know, we want to, if filmmakers want to apply to all of us on this call and more, because there are definitely some that aren't on this call, we don't ever, at least for us at Indie Memphis, we don't want to stop anyone from their way. And I think if anything, that's a superpower. I think it's to think about it any other way, and to think about, oh, I need to be competitive, or maybe I need to gatekeep or something like that in an area where we have already historically been kept out of it, and certain voices within our communities have historically been kept out of this filmmaking industry. If anything, that hurts us more than helps us. So I'm very proud to be on this call, and I'm very proud to be among like-minded individuals as we are continuing to build our networks to be more inclusive, to be more inviting, and to put more great Southern stories out there.
I love it. So we'll start wrapping this up. I mean, it'll take a minute to do this, but I wanted to ask you guys two more things. The first one is, how can people support you guys? It's hard to have a festival. It's hard to put on a festival. In fact, I don't know how any of y'all do it every year in and out. Are there ways besides, well, all the money, I know like Cucalorus is having a Kickstarter coming up. Are there ways people can have your festival on their radar to do something to contribute back?
I'll kick it off. I'd say show up. I mean, I think you've heard that over and over again in this discussion, is that the most important thing you can do is show up. And that's how I got my job. I was a volunteer at Cucalorus, and I just kept showing up. One day somebody called the office and said who was in charge, and I was the only one there, so I said that I was. And you know, you keep showing up and you become part of the community, you become part of the fabric of the community. And so don't tell anybody that. Oh no, I'll lose my job. But you know, yeah, you can do all those other things, but if you don't show up, all those other things don't literally hit, unless you show up, and don't just show up once. Go to all of our festivals, and go to whatever festival is next door to you. You'll discover so much. Every festival out there these days is a really cool place for discovery. And, Clint touched on this. I used to feel like I had to be at Sundance for at least 5 days every year. That has changed dramatically for me. I have to be at other places now. A very different world. Black Star is maybe my favorite festival. I think what they're doing is just incredible. And it's because they filled a need in the landscape. And so I think there's a festival for everyone, right? You can find your festival, and maybe it's in a city that you love. That's one of the reasons I love a lot of y'all's festivals, is that I love going to your cities. I feel at home in Atlanta, in New Orleans, in Birmingham. For years I went to the Maryland Film Festival in Baltimore. Love that city, and still have friendships in all those places. So I think it's easy. I think you show up and then you're winning.
I fully agree with everything Dan said. And to take it a step further, when you show up, like, that helps us, right? Like, having extra people like show up, that gives that it helps us. One, it makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. I'm not gonna lie, seeing so many people out there. However, it also helps us even from a grant perspective, because if we can say this many people attended and we can continue to show that we are creating demand, right, for the services we're putting out there, that helps us. So many of us on this call also provide not just in-person events, but virtual events. And we are able to track how many views those have. So even if you can't physically go to a festival, if you could support us virtually, sometimes we even do things for free virtually. So literally all you gotta do is click a button. That helps us because we are able to track those views. We're able to say, hey, hey, funder, you've supported us for so long. Continue to support us, because look at how many people are actually supporting this, even though we're not charging, even though we're doing these resources because we care. And we're putting these resources out for filmmakers, and sometimes even for audiences to see what filmmakers go through. Showing up helps so often. And also, we all are nonprofits. So if you do have even just $5 to spare, that helps too.
Chris Escobar?
Oh yeah, I mean, just to I like to say we're so broad that there's always there's something for everyone to watch and love and enjoy, and probably no one would love everything because it's so different, right? And the same way with getting involved, right? There's time, there's talent, there's treasury, and I think what Kimel was saying, there's attention. And it's unlikely that anyone has all of those things in excess, but almost certainly somebody has one of those things. And so if showing up means watching, if showing up means volunteering, if showing up means being attendance, if you don't have time to come to stuff, send your money. You don't have time to do that, volunteer with your talent in other ways, even if it's remote, even if it's virtual. And just a bare minimum, signing up for newsletters and following on social media, just helping build that audience with your attention, that also makes and builds a small impact as well. So
Awesome. Jessica?
Yes, +1 to everything that's already been said. But I think most, if not all of us also, if you're not, in our towns, specifically during our festival weekend, we all have year-round programming as well. So you can make an effort to go see that. And then additionally, we all have merch as well. So just like rep us in your town and spend your dollars that way.
There's so much good merch from a lot of y'all. My whole closet is full. Christopher Everett?
I just want to say I agree with what everyone's saying. I know with Southern Documentary Fund, we try to do pretty much everything we do is just try to help makers get their films made so they can go to festivals. So we usually do like free online workshops. So folks can, we always encourage people, whether it's festivals or other entities, just share that with makers in your network, because we're all about trying to help those makers get those projects made so they can submit to festivals and really get those films out in the world. Also, if you know any makers that need a fiscal sponsor or need mentorship, send them our way. That's what kind of keeps us going, and just keeps us, motivated to continue to do what we're doing as well.
Thank you. Anybody else on that before I go to the last?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Patricia, I just wanted to say, thank you guys so much. I'm just capturing all this information, but yeah, showing up is so important. In fact, we created a sticker for our very first year that said, fill the seats. And it says, be one of 500. And, that really helped us motivate our small community and region into galvanizing around the film festival. And of course, donations, volunteerism, media, following us on social media and following us on our web pages and stuff. That I think means as much to me as everything else, because we are so unknown and we're only a year old and we have a lot to prove, quote unquote, that we can hang in there. And I'm telling you, we are going to hang in there. But just following us and inboxing me or messaging me and sending a word of encouragement. Hope is probably the #1 tool, and I say it's a tool that really keeps us moving in our program, that hearing from folk and just encouraging our hearts means so very much. When a lot of folks have written us off because we are so rural, we are so poor, and they're thinking that we can't do it, but it's not really true at all. We've proven our first year, and so any amount of hope and encouragement and thumbs up is just an amazing thing for us.
Patricia, what you're doing is so amazing. You are a revolutionary. If y'all, obviously most folks have never been to Northeastern North Carolina. If you think the South is under a rock, Northeastern North Carolina is a forgotten place. Farmers, there's not much going on in Northeastern North Carolina, and you are blazing a trail. I can't tell you how honored I am to know you, and what a cool festival with a cool name. When people come to me, they want to start new festivals, and it's like your city film festival. It's like, no, come up with something that's distinct. And so you're killing it. Yeah, thanks for being here, Patricia. I can't wait to come to your second festival.
Yeah, thank you for your encouragement.
Me too. Before we sign off, this has been amazing. I would love to have anybody shout out a festival that's not here today that you love in the Southeast or South in general. That yeah, feel free to have at it.
I want to shout out the Rome International Film Festival. I went this past year. I've been many times, but I just had the time of my life, and it was just a fantastic job.
Yep, that's
in Rome,
Georgia. Yeah, it's a great festival.
Tryon in Tryon, North Carolina. It's in the mountains of North Carolina. Was my very first film festival, and it was just small community, but just an amazing experience.
Very cool.
I just want to mention Out on Film here in Atlanta, which is just a cool festival, but it's really interesting because you have these like pockets of filmmakers, and especially with our short film grant and things like that, I think that I know everybody that's making films in Georgia and around the Southeast for the most part. So like going to Out on Film and going to a homegrown block, and I don't know a single filmmaker. It's so like getting to like discover all these people who are making films in the same area that I am that I didn't know of. It's just really, really cool. And so I just want to, when you get into like very niche genres and whatnot of communities, I think that that's really important to find ways to reach them as well.
Well, I want to shout out the Oxford Film Festival in Mississippi. They've hung in there for a long time, and they have a great community, and I've made a lot of friends there and connections, and I appreciate them. Clint.
Just a couple more. The Patois International Human Rights Film Festival here in New Orleans is really incredible. I just am so envious of the conversations they start and the community that they engage year after year with very little resources. Also, Denton Black Film Festival. They're in Texas. I think you were focusing this on Southeast, but they're close. And I think they do such incredible work. Also, Hayti Heritage, Boondocks, some other great film festivals out there.
Awesome. Thank you. Christopher Everett.
I just want to shout out my wife's festival, the North Carolina Black Film Festival here in Wilmington, May 16th through 19th. Also, I got to shout out my festival. It's not a film festival, but it's more of a hip hop festival. It's called Three Chambers Fest. We just had our first one last year, and we're bringing it back first weekend of December. So it's pretty much a hip hop festival that combines hip hop with martial arts and anime culture. And we usually have live music performances. We do a thing called Can I Kick It, where we remix the score live to like a kung fu flick or action film. And we usually do some, events around anime and stuff like that. So check us out here in Wilmington.
So cool. Jessica.
I just got back from Oxford for my first Oxford Film Festival, and that was a lot of fun. But to talk about some Alabama festivals, the George Lindsay UNA Film Festival in Florence, Alabama, North Alabama, is really great if you're a student or on your very first or second film. They're very nurturing because they're on a college campus. It feels like you're with a lot of people who are kind of on your same level. But then the first year I was there, they had this amazing international film from the Netherlands, I believe, and the filmmaker flew in, and it's just a really great festival, no matter what your stage. And then I think I would be remiss if I also didn't shout out the Fairhope Film Festival, because they are the first film festival to give me an award. No, they're second technically, but they did give me an award, so I am indebted to them forever.
Oh, I love it. Kimel.
I would say the International Black Film Festival is in Nashville, and I think they've been around for this is going to be their 19th year, and it's not quite in the South, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out True False, which is in Missouri, and it's close.
Yes.
So, but great festival, great programming. I think they're doing amazing things there. So I want to shout out those two.
Y'all, my favorite film festival is the Borscht Film Festival. It doesn't even exist anymore, but I have to say the strangest film festival that ever lived in Miami. And I'm pretty sure I went one year where there was almost not even a film screening. But what they did so well, which I think is really vital, is that they curated the right people to be there. And I think we sometimes forget that. We think there's this objective view that the films are what make it, and it's really the people that make film festivals special. And I met some amazing people at the Borscht Film Festival on the beach at 3 a.m. in a weird planetarium, listening to a gospel singer and watching underwater time lapse. I mean, it was out of this world, and I'm still friends with a bunch of the people that I met there. And so the Borscht Film Festival is always going to have a special place for me as the weirdest Miami experience.
I love it. Anything that you think is out there is out there, and sign me up. Thank you all so much. If you wouldn't mind staying on once we stop the recording, I would love that. But we want to thank you all for watching and listening, and we're rooting for you. And I am rooting for everybody here on this panel, very much so. And yeah, thanks for your time, and thanks for attending the Atlanta Film Festival Creative Conference. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.